Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer, a successful real estate agent in the heart of Chicago. And this is how karma finally caught up with my toxic sister-in-law. It all started when my daughter Ava burst through my office door, her engagement ring sparkling like a beacon of joy. "Mom," he proposed. Ava's excitement lit up the room. I jumped from my desk, nearly knocking over my coffee. My baby girl was getting married to Michael, the kind-hearted surgeon she met during her nursing residency. "Have you told anyone else yet?" I asked, my heart swelling with pride. "Just you and Dad. I can't wait to share the news at Sunday dinner." Sunday dinner, a family tradition both cherished and endured. As if on cue, my brother-in-law Tristan and his wife, Diana, arrived that evening, right on schedule. Diana, in her usual designer ensemble, scanned our newly renovated living room with those calculating eyes. "Congratulations, darling. A doctor in the family, how wonderful," Diana cooed, hugging Ava. Her gaze shifted to her daughter Rachel, who poked at her food with disinterest. "Thanks, Aunt Diana. How's the job search going, Rachel?" "Still looking." Ava's voice was warm, but the tension at the table was palpable. Rachel muttered, "Not everyone lands a perfect job right out of school." Diana's smile tightened. "Oh, speaking of perfect, remember when Ava won that national nursing scholarship? Rachel applied for that too." I caught my husband's eye and quickly steered the conversation. "Diana, you're so talented at organizing events. Would you help with the wedding preparations?" "Of course I'd love to. Remember Rachel's Sweet 16? Everyone said it was the event of the year." I remembered. Diana had deliberately scheduled it the same weekend as Ava's dance recital, forcing the family to choose between them. "We're thinking next spring," Ava beamed. "Spring weddings are so common. Winter is much more sophisticated," Diana interjected, throwing a glance at Rachel. "Rachel always dreamed of a winter wedding, right, honey?" Rachel stabbed her chicken. "Mom, please." Later that evening, my phone buzzed. Diana's name flashed on the screen. I answered, but all I heard was her voice, unfiltered and malicious. "Listen, Rachel, we need to act fast. That little princess Ava thinks she can just waltz down the aisle with Michael. Don't worry, Mommy will make sure this wedding never happens. I've got connections at the country club." My blood ran cold. Diana had pocket-dialed me by mistake, and I had heard every vile word. She had no idea she'd been caught. The next day, she arrived at my house with wedding magazines and a fake smile, oblivious to what I knew. "These venues look lovely," I said, watching her scroll through options. "You're such a help, Diana." "That's what family is for," she replied, her smile saccharine and smug. But she didn't know I had recorded every word of her accidental call. She had started a war she couldn't win. That night, I couldn't sleep. My maternal instincts screamed at me to protect Ava. So I did what any mother would do. I started digging. "Michael's quite the catch, isn't he?" Diana's voice crackled through the recording. "We just need the right girl to play his ex. Someone convincing enough to make Ava doubt everything." Rachel's bitter voice chimed in. "Mom, I was in his med school class. I know exactly the type he likes." I took notes. My real estate networking skills kicked into high gear. A call to my friend at the country club revealed Diana's gambling habit. Another to the event planning committee exposed her history of sabotaging family weddings by double booking vendors. "Did you hear about Diana's Christmas party fiasco?" Margaret, a friend, whispered over coffee. "She lost $50,000 at the casino that weekend. Tristan has no idea." I casually brought up Michael at lunch with Tristan's secretary. "Oh, Dr. Hamilton," she said, leaning in conspiratorially. "Rachel used to follow him around like a lost puppy in med school. It was uncomfortable for everyone. He even had to switch study groups to get away from her." The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but I needed more. So I hired a private investigator, one of the perks of having a healthy savings account, something Diana couldn't dream of with her gambling debts. A week later, the photos arrived. Diana meeting a young woman at a cafe, discreetly passing her an envelope of cash. As I examined the pictures, my phone buzzed again. Another pocket dial from Diana. This time, I was ready. I hit record. "The vendors are lined up perfectly," Diana's smug voice echoed. "One call from me claiming payment issues, and I'll drop the wedding like a hot potato. Ava will be devastated." "But what about Michael's job?" Rachel's voice cut in. "You promised to handle that too." Tristan's golf buddy sits on the hospital board, Diana replied. One whisper about medical misconduct, and our dear future son-in-law's career goes up in smoke. I felt sick, but kept listening. And you're sure Jennifer doesn't suspect anything? Please, Diana scoffed. She's too busy playing perfect mom to notice anything. Besides, I've got bigger problems. The casino wants their money by next month. How much this time? Just $75,000, Diana sighed. But don't worry, I've got a plan. I ended the recording, my hands steady as I poured myself a drink. Diana thought I was blind. Time to show her how wrong she was. My phone pinged, a message from my PI. Found something interesting in Tristan's company financials. You're going to want to see this. When I opened the files, my jaw dropped. Diana wasn't just gambling away her shopping money. She was embezzling from Tristan's company. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about stopping a family saboteur who'd been poisoning us for years. I called my friend Margaret. Remember that casino dealer you mentioned? I think it's time we had a chat. The next morning, I secured backup vendors under my best friend's name. If Diana thought she could control everything, she was in for a surprise. Everything's ready, Mrs. Walker, whispered the backup caterer. Just say the word. Meanwhile, my PI delivered a stack of evidence, bounced checks, threatening messages from loan sharks, and the piece de resistance, $250,000 siphoned from Tristan's business accounts into offshore gambling sites. At a quiet cafe, I confronted Diana's hired actress. How much is she paying you to play Michael's ex? The woman stammered, I don't know what you're talking about. I slid an envelope across the table. Here's double. Now tell me everything. She promised me $5,000 to show up at the rehearsal dinner and cause a scene, the woman admitted. Said it was all about ruining some spoiled princess's wedding. Next stop, the hospital board. I presented Diana's history of slander attempts, along with a warning about potential liability. They were all ears. Then I paid a visit to Rachel's ex-boyfriend from med school. Rachel was obsessed with Michael, he said bitterly. She stalked me for 6 months after we broke up. I had to change my phone number twice. Finally, I made an anonymous call to Diana's casino contacts. Word is Diana Walker's planning to skip town before paying her debts. Thought you'd want to know. Rehearsal dinner arrived. Diana fidgeted with her phone, clearly wondering why her hired actress hadn't shown up. Standing, she raised her glass. I'd like to make a toast, she said, her hands shaking. To the happy couple. Before she could finish, 2 large men in suits entered the restaurant. Mrs. Walker, one of them said, his voice low and menacing. We need to discuss your outstanding balance. Diana's face went pale. I can pay next week. That's what he said last month. Rachel jumped up. Mom, what's going on? Nothing, Diana stammered. Just a misunderstanding about some investments. I sipped my wine, watching my chess pieces fall perfectly into place. The next morning, Ava's wedding day. As guests arrived at the church, Diana was cornered by the same casino enforcers. You can't hide forever, one growled. Tristan stormed in moments later, holding a stack of printed emails. The company theft, the gambling, offshore accounts. His voice was thunderous. Diana, explain yourself. Tristan, darling, I can explain. Save it for the divorce lawyers, he snapped. Meanwhile, Rachel was having her own meltdown as old med school classmates arrived. Oh my God, it's the stalker. One of the guests pointed in horror. Remember how she followed Michael everywhere? She even tried to break into his apartment. The room fell into a stunned silence. Wedding guests stared at Rachel, their shock palpable. Her hospital colleagues exchanged horrified glances. You told everyone I was crazy, Rachel shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. I didn't have to tell anyone. I said calmly. Your actions spoke for themselves. Diana grabbed her purse, ready to bolt, but the casino men blocked her path. Actually, your accounts are frozen, Tristan announced, his voice cold and final. There's a corporate fraud investigation. I smoothed the front of my mother of the bride dress, surveying the chaos with a sense of satisfaction. Then I addressed the room. Now we have a wedding to celebrate. If anyone isn't here for the ceremony, feel free to leave. Ava and Michael's wedding proceeded flawlessly. Ava was radiant, blissfully unaware of the morning's drama. Diana and Rachel stood at the back, their reputations crumbling with every vow exchanged. 2 months later, Tristan's divorce from Diana was finalized. She lost everything. Last I heard, she was working double shifts at a diner to pay off her gambling debts. Rachel. She transferred to a small clinic after her obsessive past became public knowledge. Her dream of a prestigious hospital career shattered. One morning, Ava called. "Mom, did you know anything about Aunt Diana's plans to ruin my wedding?" "Sweetheart," I replied, "some people create their own downfall. We just have to stay above it." 2 years later, a gold embossed envelope arrived in the mail. Tristan was remarrying a lovely accountant who specialized in fraud detection. Ironically, the engagement party was at the same diner where Diana now worked. "More coffee, Jennifer?" Diana asked, her designer bags replaced by dark circles under her eyes. "No, thank you, Diana. I think you've served me enough," I replied with a smile. Rachel now works in obscurity, her ambitions buried beneath her obsession. Sometimes karma doesn't need a grand gesture, just a subtle nudge. Ava and Michael are expecting their first child. As for me, I'm still selling houses, attending charity galas, and being the perfect wife and mother. No one ever suspected sweet, simple Jennifer had orchestrated Diana's downfall. The moral? Never mistake kindness for weakness, and never ever try to hurt my family. What would you have done? If you discovered someone toxic was actively sabotaging your child's future, would you expose them immediately? Or play the long game, letting them destroy themselves? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from parents who've had to protect their children from toxic family members. And remember, sometimes the quietest revenge is the most effective. Every like and subscribe helps bring stories of karma and justice to others facing similar situations. See you in the next tale of sweet, sweet revenge.